the CFIB business barometer, which is measuring business sentiment, which has plummeted to the lowest level on record, below the pandemic. And people are still saying, is Canada in a recession? Is Canada in a recession? Government, please tell me, is Canada in a recession? The mainstream media is finally admitting the economic implosion, the economic demolition that is now happening in Canada. So we're going to get into that. We're going to get into a lot more in this video. So stick around. So Wells Fargo, big bank in the United States, sees Canada slipping into recession as tariffs weigh on growth. Now, the funny thing about this whole situation is the fact that Canada is in a literal depression, or it's going into a literal depression right now, because it's been in a per capita recession since 2022. And what you have to acknowledge is most of the GDP, in fact, 80% of it, is government spending. In fact, let's shoot over here to Better Dwelling, which is excellent. And they put out last year, Canadian government spending, now 80% of GDP. So when they say we're not in a technical recession, it's just another lie, because essentially if you work in the private sector, yeah, you're getting absolutely you're getting absolutely screwed, because the government is just a massive cover-up. And guess what? The new prime minister, he wants to spend even more money. So that's going to be even more of GDP. I mean, that's all the government has to do to prevent a recession, just increase its deficits, but it will also increase inflation. And then after an election of vilifying Trump, I couldn't help but include this, because it just shows what a clown country Canada is becoming.
Canada ran against, not only against the conservatives, but also against you. Yesterday, yesterday he spoke about American betrayal. Are you interested in rebuilding relations with Canada? And if so, how?
No, well, I think we're going to have a great relationship. He called me up yesterday. He said, let's make a deal. You know, he was running for office. They both hated Trump, and it was the one that hated Trump, I think, the least that won. I actually think the conservative...
I mean, isn't that absolutely hilarious? And you can see that Trump is even holding back from smiling there, because he knows what a clown country Canada has now become. And whether you like Trump or not, one thing you could admire him for is his candidness. But the hilarious thing is, they ran a campaign on fear-mongering over Trump, and then Mark Carney calls him the literal day after the election and goes, hey, let's make a deal. Let's... Just absolutely hilarious. The elbows up, buy Canadian thing, just straight down the drain just a couple of days after the election. I mean, this just shows how people are sheep, unfortunately, in Canada, and they just do what they're told by their government, which is absolutely insane. Let's continue to watch this.
He hated me much more than the so-called liberal. He's a pretty liberal guy. But no, I spoke to him yesterday. Couldn't have been nicer, and I congratulate him.
They're going to be best friends.
It was a very mixed signal, because it's almost even, which makes it very complicated for the country.
Yeah, it certainly does make it complicated for the country. The country is massively divided. There's renewed calls for separation from Alberta. You know, it's just the Canada Confederation is just pulling apart. That's what essentially is happening. So it's just an absolute disaster what we've seen over the past week there. So Wells Fargo saying Canada could enter a recession here. Technical recession this year as weaker global trade dampens activity. It's saying that Canada's outsized trade exposure to the US leaves it particularly vulnerable to the latest round of protectionist moves. We now believe Canada's economy will enter technical recession this year. And just remember, a technical recession, that means nothing. That is economic speak. But the fact is, Canada is already in a recession. I mean, it's heading into a depression. I mean, just look at the food bank lines. Just look at how many people are desperate, how many people are homeless, how crime is rising. It's just all obvious where Canada is economically speaking. You don't have to be an economist to work that out. And another metric that you can go over and look at is this, which is Canada ranked almost dead last in growing GDP per person from 2014 to 2022. So just imagine if Canada voted in the same people who presided over this. Oh wait, they actually did. Just so stupid, isn't it, when you think about it? It's just doing the same thing, expecting a different result. I mean, Carney is literally just the front man. All the other people behind him are exactly the same. So how can anybody say that this government is going to be any different? I mean, it's just hilarious. So if you look where Canada is, it's right behind even Japan. Yes, that's Japan that still hasn't recovered from 2 lost decades in a real estate bubble. And Canada is right behind it, not in front of it. So it just shows you what's going on. And then grim retail sales underbelly points to Bank of Canada restarting rate cuts, say economists. And this is the thing. They think that interest rate cuts are going to save everybody. It's just absolutely hilarious. I mean, it is not the case at all that will happen. I mean, carrying debt becomes less expensive and people are more likely then to pile on more debt, but that's not a net positive for your economy in the long run. It's a net negative, and it doesn't actually make anything better at all, as we saw during the pandemic. In fact, it made things a lot worse in the long run, and we're seeing that play out right now. But again, we're just going to repeat the same thing and expect a different result. This is obvious. The economics that people want is just repeating the same thing, just complete insanity. Literal complete insanity by Albert Einstein's standards. So it's just absolutely crazy. And then, of course, wanted to show you this because this is just hilarious. So Canadian GDP shows huge growth, but 80% is now government. On the surface, Canada's economy is ripping higher. This was last year, remember. Annual real GDP growth climbed to 2.1% in Q2 2024, higher than the consensus estimate. It follows 1.8% growth in Q1, which saw an upward revision from 1.7% originally reported. By itself, this sounds like the economy is just booming. Heck, it even beat expectations, but most readers likely noticed it didn't keep up with the population. When adjusted for the population, the picture isn't so rosy. Real GDP per capita declined 0.1% in Q2 2024, with StatCan noting it was the 5th consecutive decline. Per capita growth fell in 7 out of the 8 past quarters, marking a recession by some definitions. And this is the key thing here. Canada is already in a recession. The fact is that, yes, they haven't come out and said you're in a technical recession, but they don't have to anymore, because the government could just come out and spend more money or try and import more desperate people into Canada in order to rejuvenate their voting base, because that's working a freaking treat. I mean, just look at what happened with the last election. So it really shows where Canada is, this. And this, just think about it. Real GDP per capita, that ain't even accurate. So when you're looking at this, I mean, it's another government metric, right? This comes from Statistics Canada. But bear in mind, wealth inequality has moved so far apart since the pandemic. You basically have the 10%, the top 10% in Canada, having most the wealth and most the growth of their income, whilst everybody else is just getting utterly obliterated and destroyed. I mean, that is the reality of what is going on in the Canadian economy, and that is why things are so bad. It's really only the people who are at the very top, who are on a pile of cash, most likely generated by the housing bubble, who are most likely in their 60s or in their 70s, that actually are getting by okay. And even they don't realize they're about to be absolutely screwed over by the government that they just voted for. And then another metric that we always keep an eye on here is what's happening with recession search terms on Google Trends. And if you take a look what's happening, you can see that since the election here, it's actually exploded upwards here. So now you've got more and more people searching for recession, the same since 2022, where Canada nearly entered a recession, and the same since around 2020, when obviously the whole country was shut down. And this goes right along with all the other economic statistics that we see, as well as the CFIB business barometer, which is measuring business sentiment, which has plummeted to the lowest level on record, below the pandemic. And people are still saying, is Canada in a recession? Is Canada in a recession? Government, please tell me, is Canada in a recession? I just can't take it. It's just so fucking stupid. People are so brain dead. I just have to say it because it's true. And then the unemployment rate. Yeah, this is going up. This is going up, baby. Get ready. Strap in. This is only just getting started. And with the new clown installed, oh yeah, this is going up. But you know what? They're going to tell you it's going down. And everybody's going to believe it. And then lending as well. Yeah, what's going on with lending? It's pretty much collapsed since the pandemic. So if you look all the way back to 2013, we've been barcoding here with mortgages now for 3 years. So that does put a lot of pressure on the banking system, especially when the banking system is increasing loan loss reserves. They're getting more loan write-offs and more people are going under on their finances, can't pay their bills. So it's increasing a lot of bank stress, but also how are they making money? Because if you look at the amount of new mortgages they're getting, it ain't good. It doesn't look good. So that's another thing that you have to factor in. So anyway, we'll continue to monitor this show and see what happens. So if you've enjoyed this video, I'd highly recommend that you check out this video here. And if you're looking for a VPN, you're gonna need one. Go to expressvpn.com/market mania. I will see you in the next one. Take care, guys.